The Vraxian delegation called it a monument. The colony administrators called it a landmark. But maintenance technician Sarah Chen called it what it actually was, a damn eyesore blocking Bay 7's loading zone. The creature was massive, easily 40 meters from snout to tail, its crystalline scales catching the harsh light of Kepler 442b's binary suns. It had been there for as long as anyone could remember, longer according to the historical records. 117 years to be exact. Frozen mid-roar, its wings spread in eternal defiance, mouth agape as if screaming at the heavens. The Vraxians worshipped it. They said it was Krazath the Eternal, their species' greatest warrior, cursed by an ancient enemy to live as stone until the stars themselves burned out. Every year they made pilgrimage across 3-star systems just to stand before it and chant their prayers. Sarah just wished they'd move their worship somewhere that didn't require her to reroute cargo haulers every damn week. She wiped the grease from her hands and squinted up at the dragon thing. Up close you could see the fine details the sculptors, or whatever force had done this, had captured. Every scale was individual, each one etched with patterns that seemed to shift in the light. The eyes, massive and multifaceted like insects, held what Sarah could only describe as rage, pure distilled fury. "You look thirsty, big guy," she muttered, setting down her toolbox. The joke was older than her tenure on the colony. Everyone said it. The dragon's mouth was open so wide you could drive a small shuttle into it. Its crystalline tongue curled back as if it had been crying out for something in its final moment. Sarah pulled out her thermos. Her shift was over, and she'd been planning to enjoy her coffee while watching the sunset over the methane seas. But the dragon looked so pathetic, desperate even in stone. "This is stupid," she said to no one. The loading bay was empty. Even the Vraxian pilgrims had gone for the night. She climbed onto the cargo lifter and raised herself up to the dragon's lower jaw. This close, she could see hairline fractures in the crystal, places where meteor impacts over a century had chipped away at its surface. There was even a small crack near its throat, where rainwater had collected and frozen and expanded, creating a tiny fissure that went deeper than it should. Sarah unscrewed her thermos and, feeling absolutely ridiculous, poured the coffee into the dragon's open mouth. The liquid splashed against the crystalline tongue and ran down into the throat cavity, disappearing into the cracks. Sarah watched it vanish and shook her head. "There you go, Krazath. First drink in 100 years. Hope you like it black and bitter. Because that's how life is out here." She climbed down, packed up her equipment, and headed for the residential sector. She didn't see the faint glow that pulsed once, twice, deep within the dragon's chest. The alarms woke her at 300 hours. Sarah stumbled out of her bunk, pulling on her work suit as her comm unit screamed emergency codes. "Breach in Bay 7. Structural failure. All personnel to evacuation stations." She ran. Bay 7 was chaos. Security drones circled overhead, their spotlights cutting through clouds of crystalline dust. The cargo containers had been scattered like toys. And in the center of it all, where the dragon statue had stood for over a century, there was nothing but empty space and a massive hole in the floor. "Chen," her supervisor, Rodriguez, grabbed her shoulder. "Did you do any work on the monument yesterday?" "I what? No. I mean, I was in the bay, but..." A sound cut through the noise. A sound that Sarah felt in her bones, in her teeth, in the base of her skull. It was a roar, but also words, syllables she couldn't understand but somehow knew were language. The dragon rose from the lower maintenance tunnels. It was no longer crystal. Its scales had transformed into something between metal and living tissue, each one glowing with bioluminescent patterns. Its eyes, no longer frozen, burned with intelligence and that same fury Sarah had seen in stone. But there was something else now. Confusion. Wonder. The creature's head swiveled, taking in the bay, the humans scrambling away, the technology that hadn't existed when it had been imprisoned. Its gaze fell on Sarah. She should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to move. But she stood her ground as the dragon lowered its massive head until one dinner plate-sized eye was level with her face. When it spoke, the translator implant in her ear struggled to keep up, rendering the words in a voice like grinding glaciers and singing stars. "You gave water?" Sarah's mouth was dry. "Coffee, actually." The dragon blinked, a membrane sliding sideways across that massive eye. Water, life, gift. It pulled back, rising to its full height, wings spreading to blot out the overhead lights. 117 cycles, stone, silent, screaming, thirst beyond thirst, rage beyond rage. The security drones were converging now, weapons charging. Rodriguez was shouting evacuation orders, but the dragon ignored them all, its gaze fixed on Sarah. Krazath the Eternal remembers, it said, and something that might have been a smile crossed its alien features. Remembers the curse. Remembers the stone. Remembers the thirst. It lowered its head again, almost gently. Remembers the small one who gave water when all others gave prayers? I didn't know, Sarah said, finding her voice. I didn't know you were alive in there. Alive, yes, always alive. Always aware. Stone prison. Stone tomb. Stone hell. The dragon's wings folded. You did not know. Yet you gave. Why? Sarah thought about lying, about making it sound noble, but something in those ancient eyes demanded truth. You looked thirsty. The dragon was silent for a long moment. Then it threw back its head and laughed, a sound like avalanches and wind through canyons. The bay shook with it. Thirsty! It roared. Yes, thirsty. 117 cycles of thirst, and the small one says I looked thirsty. It lowered its head once more, and when it spoke, its voice was soft, almost reverent. The Vraxians prayed, chanted, wept, begged the gods. For 117 cycles, they tried to break the curse with faith. The dragon extended one massive claw and, with impossible gentleness, touched Sarah's shoulder. But only human saw thirst. Only human gave water. Only human treated Krazath not as monument, not as god, not as legend, but as living thing that suffered. Rodriguez was calling for reinforcements. The colony administrator was demanding explanations. But Sarah only had eyes for the dragon. What will you do now? She asked. Krazath pulled back, wings spreading once more. Now Krazath flies, finds the one who cursed, repays debt of century. Those massive eyes gleamed. But first, debt to small one. Sarah Chen of Earth, you gave water in desert of stone. Krazath gives you gift. I don't need, not for you to decide. The dragon interrupted. Vraxian honor demands. You freed Krazath. Krazath owes life debt. It reached up with one claw and plucked a single scale from its chest. The scale was the size of Sarah's hand, glowing with inner light, thrumming with energy. This scale will call Krazath once anywhere in galaxy. When you most need ally, when you most face darkness, call. Sarah took the scale. It was warm, alive, humming against her palm. Now, Krazath said, turning toward the bay doors. Krazath goes. But remember, small ones of Earth. Remember what broke century-old curse. Not magic. Not prayer. Not advanced technology. The dragon looked back and Sarah could swear it was smiling. Simple human kindness. Simple recognition of suffering. Simple cup of coffee given to one who looked thirsty. With a surge of muscle and light, Krazath launched itself through the bay doors, shattering them in an explosion of metal and crystal. Sarah watched it rise into the alien sky, a living comet against the stars, free at last. Rodriguez appeared at her side, staring at the destruction. Chen, he said slowly, what the hell just happened? Sarah looked down at the glowing scale in her hand, then up at the dragon vanishing into the night. I gave a guy a drink, she said. He was thirsty. And somewhere in the distance, carried on the wind, she heard laughter like thunder and the beat of wings that could carry a soul across the stars.